There once was a land, forgotten by time. The soil was cracked and thirsty. The rivers had long dried up. Villages were abandoned. Houses crumbled into dust, and the wind howled through empty valleys. It was a place where hope had withered, just like the trees that once stood tall and proud. Most would pass by and see only ruin. But one traveler, seeking peace and solitude, wandered deep into these hills of Provence and found something entirely unexpected. The traveler wasn't looking for anyone. He came to this desolate valley only to escape from noise, from the city, from the war, from the weariness in his soul. But fate had its own plan. One evening, after walking for hours across bare hills, he came upon a small stone cottage. Smoke rose gently from the chimney. Outside, a man in his 60s stood silently, pouring water for his sheep. He looked like he belonged to the earth, as if he had grown out of it himself. His name was Elzéard Bouffier. He wasn't just a shepherd. He was a man of few words, fewer needs, and a heart that held a quiet, stubborn hope. He invited the traveler in, offered a simple meal of soup and bread, and listened. But when the traveler asked him what he did all day besides herding sheep, Elzéard said something odd. "I plant trees." At first, the traveler thought he had misheard. But the next morning, he followed the old man and watched as he carefully examined the soil, selected a perfect acorn from his pouch, dug a small hole, and placed the seed like a prayer into the earth, over and over, silently, lovingly, patiently. Later, sitting by the fire, the traveler asked him why. Why do this, alone, with no one watching, in a place so forgotten? Elzéard looked into the flames and said, "This land is dying because men stopped caring, but it can live again. Someone just has to begin." He had once lost his only child, then his wife. Grief had nearly taken him, but instead of falling into despair, he chose a different kind of mourning. He planted. At first, it was only to occupy his hands. Then, it became a purpose, a quiet defiance against ruin. He learned to read the land like a book, which soil needed pine, where beech would grow best, where the wind could protect the seedlings. Every day, he planted 100 acorns. Some days more, some days fewer. Some trees died, some were eaten, some survived. But he never stopped, because he had learned something precious. If you do something good with no hope of reward, it becomes pure. 10 years passed, then 15. The traveler returned, expecting the same emptiness, the same silence. But what he found made him pause in awe. The hills, once naked and grey, now held a quiet green. Tiny forests, barely taller than a man, swayed with promise. Birds fluttered, bees danced. Even the air smelled different, moist, alive, filled with the scent of pine and the rustle of growth. And at the center of it all, still with the same slow, steady rhythm, was Elzéard. He no longer kept sheep. He had given them up to focus entirely on reforesting the valley. Each morning, he walked many miles with a bag of seeds, not only acorns, but maple, birch, ash, and even wildflowers. He kept a logbook. He recorded seasons, failures, successes. He adjusted his techniques like a scientist, but lived like a monk. What took nature centuries to lose, he was rebuilding, quietly, one tree at a time. Then came the war. While the world burned and millions perished, the forest grew. Bullets didn't reach these trees. No bombs fell on these hills. In a time of destruction, one corner of the earth was healing. Governments collapsed. Borders shifted. Men shouted and killed. But Elzéard said nothing. He just kept planting. To him, the war was only noise. a distant, temporary madness. And yet, even war could not stop the wind from carrying seeds, could not stop the rains from nourishing roots, could not stop the forest from pushing upward, green, patient, eternal. While others tried to conquer the world, Elzéard was rebuilding it, not with power, but with love. He reminded us that even in the darkest times, one man with a pure purpose can be stronger than armies. By the time the traveler came back again, decades later, what he saw took his breath away. What once was a desert was now a living, breathing forest. Acres of trees danced in the wind. Wildlife thrived. The climate had changed. Villages nearby were being rebuilt. Families returned. Children played, and no one knew why. The government had sent experts. They couldn't explain how such a miracle had occurred. But the traveler knew. He smiled, thinking of the man with the acorns, planting quietly, year after year, expecting nothing. Elzéard Bouffier never sought applause. He didn't even leave his name behind. He simply lived and planted and believed. And when he passed away, the forest stood tall as his living monument, not one built of stone or fame, but of leaves, shade, air, and life. His story teaches us that even the most forgotten soul can restore what seems lost. That gentleness, not power, holds the true key to change. So what can we do? We may not plant forests, but we can plant kindness, ideas, compassion, and hope. In others, in ourselves, in the world. A tree does not grow overnight. But if we start today, quietly, patiently, then one day, someone may rest in the shade of what we've done and whisper, "This too began with just one seed."